Hi, Dr. Rudman. We're a group of occupational therapy students from St. Louis University, and we'd love the chance to talk to you today. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you.
Can you tell us where you teach and where you're from?
Yes, I am from Ontario, Canada, and I am a professor at Western University.
How did you become involved in the field of occupational science?
I became involved in the field of occupational science when I returned to graduate school after having practiced as an OT. My OT program was a bachelor's level, so when I went back to get my master's in the mid-1990s, occupational science was emerging as a discipline. I had a chance to hear both Ann Wilcock and Betty Yerxa speak. This led my own research to be occupation-focused, and I carried that focus into my next job as a research coordinator in an OT department at a large teaching hospital. I then completed my PhD in the field of critical public health. I brought an occupational science lens to the work I was doing by integrating public health science and occupational science.
What are some of the most valuable lessons you have learned through your research and development of knowledge in OS?
First, I have learned that people are the experts on their own occupation, so it is important to create research conditions which are applicable to people's experiences of occupation in their everyday worlds. It is also very important to engage with people who are diverse to fully understand the complexity of occupation. Finally, I have learned through engaging in research that occupation is not an individual phenomenon. Each study I've done has progressively increased my understanding of how occupation is also situated within political, economic, cultural, social, and other contexts.
Describe an achievement within the field of OS that you are proudest of and why.
I am very proud of being the recipient of the Townsend Polachenko Lectureship in OS and the Ruth Zemke Lecture because the achievement signifies that others have acknowledged that I have made significant contributions to the field of OS.
What jobs did you have prior to becoming involved in OS?
I was a clinical occupational therapist working in geriatric rehabilitation, and then I was a research coordinator for an OT department in a large teaching hospital.
How has the field of OS changed and grown since you've become involved?
The field predominantly existed at USC and has definitely changed since then. OS has become an international science and has also expanded from being a basic science of occupation to include critical occupational science, which is focused on understanding and addressing occupational inequities and injustices.
You have written in many publications and have participated in many projects. Is there one that particularly stands out to you and why?
I am most proud of the occupational terminology article that addresses the concept of occupational possibilities. In this article, I was able to draw together a lot of previous work and show how it was all related by a concern with understanding how occupational possibilities are constructed sociopolitically and how they are inequitably distributed. This article has served as a launching point for much of my following work, and it is exciting to see other researchers using this in their studies.
What is one of your favorite occupations that you have?
I would say amongst my favorite occupations are ones that involve connecting with others, whether that be aspects of work that involve working with students and colleagues and researcher aspects of my home life that involve doing various kinds of occupations with my 2 teenage kids, such as schoolwork and other fun activities.
When you travel, do your occupations change? Did the way you normally perform your occupations change because your environment changed?
I do travel for conferences a lot, and yes, your occupations do change when you travel to a new environment. For example, how you gauge your mobility-related occupations always change quite drastically, as I have a car at home, but I don't have this when I travel, and different cities have different transportation systems that you need to learn.
How does occupational science and occupational therapy present in foreign countries in your point of view?
The question of how OS and OT present in different parts of the world is also a big one. When I was in Brazil, for example, it seemed that OS was still very much emerging and that OTs had not yet fully embraced OS and were not sure of its contributions to OT. In Europe, there seems to be less of a clear distinction between OS and OT than there is in the US and Canada.
Do you find there are many varying views and/or disputes in the occupational science field?
I do think there are some varying views in the occupational science field, but that variation is a good thing as it means that we push one another to clearly articulate what we are doing, how we are doing it, and why we are doing occupational science in particular ways. For example, I think there are varying views about the relationship between OS and OT. Some think that OS should be answering questions of immediate relevance to OT. Others think that OS should focus on studying occupation and some of the knowledge may be taken up by OT. And others think that OS should be an interdisciplinary space that isn't necessarily concerned if or how its work is taken up by OT. I tend to see that there is a space where OS does overlap with OT, but other areas of OS sit outside its relation to OT.
Why is OS important both to you as an individual and as an academic subject?
OS is important to me as a field of study because I truly believe that occupation is crucial at an individual and at societal levels for a variety of reasons connected to well-being, inclusion, societal change, and identity.
What is one thing you wish everyone knew about occupational science?
The one thing I wish everyone knew about occupational science is that it has existed for over 2 decades and is an established field of study, so it is no longer just emerging.
How do you create occupational balance within your own life?
I'm not sure if I have occupational balance in my life. I don't think occupational balance is something you achieve and then have. I think it's a constant process we are engaged in when certain occupations come up at certain times and in certain contexts, and others go to the background, and the foreground and background are constantly shifting. For me, it's about being aware of my occupations, why I'm doing them, with whom and when, and finding a mix at a particular point in time that provides balance for my occupational needs and those of the people closest to me.
What is the current focus of your interest in research in OS?
In terms of my current research and foci, I am interested in 2 broad areas. The first is understanding the mechanisms through which occupational inequities and injustices are produced and sustained. And the second is working through how participatory, collaborative methodologies can be used in future ways that work against occupational inequities.
Do you have any future research plans?
My future research plans hopefully include contributing to international teams of critically oriented occupational science researchers who are drawing on occupational science and participatory methodologies to address social issues impacting occupation.
What advice do you have for us OS students?
My advice for OS students is to push themselves to look beyond what they and others take for granted about occupation. Doing this will open them to more complex, diverse understandings of occupation.
Thank you for answering all our questions, Debbie. I hope you have a safe trip back.
Thank you, kid.